So you have all these children that are suffering in the system. It goes unaddressed. Their needs aren't met. They're disconnected from their identity, culture, and their families, their communities.
It is practically undisputed that child welfare systems are failing Indigenous kids in this country, sometimes fatally. An emergency meeting has been convened by the federal government. It starts tomorrow here in Ottawa to explore why those kids are taken from their families with such stunning frequency. Of all children aged 14 and under in Canada, only 7.7% are Indigenous. But Indigenous kids account for more than half of those of that age in foster care. In Manitoba last weekend, a 15-year-old Indigenous girl took her own life in a foster home. And tonight, the girl's mother tells Cameron McIntosh exactly how the system failed her family.
She probably figured like nobody wanted her.
This woman's 15-year-old daughter killed herself in a Winnipeg foster home last weekend. By law, we can't identify either because she has other kids in care. She acknowledges her part in this tragedy.
I was into drugs, so I figured she'd have a better life there.
Now clean, she says Manitoba's Child and Family Services, CFS, did little to help reunite her family as her daughter lost hope, bouncing from foster home to foster home.
They're supposed to connect family together.
The girl was under the care of this agency, Manitoba's Métis Child, Family and Community Services. Neither it nor the province will comment on this case or any others, citing privacy laws, which are intended to protect the identities of children in care, but also make the system secretive and hard to hold to account. Here's what the province will say. Last March, just over 10,000 kids were in care. About 90% of those were Indigenous. Poor housing, higher rates of substance abuse and domestic violence all contribute to the higher apprehension rate. In Manitoba, funding also increases for each child taken into care. Last year, that cost $500 million.
And the answer isn't money. It isn't.
Manitoba's First Nations family advocate says investments need to go into prevention.
We could do things far more cost efficiently if we just invested in families.
Manitoba's premier says the system is under review and agrees apprehensions are too common. But here and across the country, politicians, Indigenous leaders, and families have differing opinions on how best to keep kids out of care. The federal Indigenous Services Minister calls it a crisis.
These are Canadian children that are being apprehended every single day.
Tomorrow in Ottawa, she's hosting an emergency meeting to try to build consensus.
We as a federal government will be coming there with some firm commitments.
As for the death, there will be an investigation to see if care in fact did break down. The results likely to remain confidential under current Manitoba law. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.